Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Hey, Leader X, what is it about this that is going to effectively make the lives of British Columbians better?
Debate night. BC's three main party leaders square off on TV as Election Day approaches. Plus,
the extraordinary profits for those who are prepared to roll the dice and get involved.
Rising concerns about the sheer amount of drugs flowing from Canada to Australia. And
our main concern really is the tenants.
Almost a dozen people are forced from their homes after a massive fire in East Vancouver.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. We are a half hour away from the leaders of BC's three main political parties facing off in a live, televised debate. BC NDP leader David Eby, BC Conservative leader John Rustad, and BC Green leader Sonia Furstenau will face questions on key issues facing you, British Columbians. Joining us now is Katie DeRosa, the CBC's legislative reporter. Katie, what can viewers and voters expect?
Well, Dan, it's likely to be a fiery debate tonight. It's the only televised debate the leaders will be doing before the election on the 19th. And really, we saw already Eby, Rustad, and Sonia Furstenau arriving here in the CBC building in downtown Vancouver, where the debate is being held, organized by the BC Broadcast Consortium. And we're already past the halfway point of the election campaign with 11 days to go. But a lot of people might only just now be starting to pay attention and make their decisions on who will get their vote. So a lot of people have been looking at how polarizing this election campaign has been, especially with the collapse of BC United, formerly the BC Liberals, which attracted a lot of centrist voters. So this will be a chance for the leaders to speak to some of those voters. Rustad told reporters yesterday he expects more of the same from Eby in terms of personal attacks, which he said is an attempt to distract from the NDP government's record. In the radio debate last week, Rustad largely avoided eye contact with Eby, avoided engaging with Eby directly during cross-debate. So that's sort of maybe something we can look for tonight. Really, for Eby, on his part, we can expect him to highlight his priorities during his last 2 years as Premier. But he's also likely to put forward some of the controversial statements made by Rustad and his Conservative candidates on climate change, abortion rights, LGBTQ issues, Indigenous reconciliation. So that's where we could see Eby go on the attack. When it comes to Sonia Furstenau, she said she wants to avoid the mudslinging and personal attacks and focus on the vision her party has to shore up public services like healthcare, education, and transportation.
Katie, what are each of the leaders hoping to achieve?
Well, like I said, this is a big opportunity for them. It's a chance to pitch their party's platform to British Columbians. Again, especially to people who might be undecided. They'll be trying to get their main policy points across clearly, but also while taking some swipes at their opponents when they can. So we expect the leaders to talk about affordability, housing, mental health and addictions, healthcare, the carbon tax, climate change, and infrastructure. Now, the NDP and the Conservatives have been neck and neck in various polls, but one Leger survey today shows the NDP 5 points ahead of the Conservatives. The poll shows the Conservatives have lost some support among younger voters and among women. The Greens trail both parties with about 9% support. But again, a lot of polls are showing that about 10% of voters are undecided. So this debate could be a big opportunity for those leaders to grab voters who are sitting on the fence.
Katie DeRosa, our legislative reporter, thanks very much. And a reminder, the leaders' debate starts at 6:30 right here on CBC. You can follow it on CBC Television, CBC Radio, live on TikTok, online on our website, cbc.ca/BC, and on our 24/7 streaming channel, CBC News BC. Now, on the campaign trail, the BC Conservatives were promoting their strategy on mental health and addictions today. It's called the BC Recovers Plan, which they argue is focused on ending the overdose and addictions crisis. John Rustad says if elected, his party will appoint an addictions specialist to coordinate response across government. He says they will cut down on wait times for treatment and expand 911 services to cover mental health calls. He also says they will end decriminalization and the safe supply of drugs.
We want to end decriminalization It has taken tools away from police to have a civil society, and it is obviously not working in terms of when you look at the numbers of people who are dying from overdoses. We will stop the drug legalization. This whole issue of safe supply is not safe. It is dangerous. This should not be the approach that we take in British Columbia.
To other news now, drug shipments from Canada to Australia are on the rise. More than 60 packages of methamphetamine were seized near YVR in the past 5 months alone, but plenty more is getting to Australian shores. Georgie Smythe has more on why the drugs are so sought after down under.
We have methamphetamine in liquid form. We also have methamphetamine in its kind of traditional crystal type form, but it's been
meth masked as candles, soap, a birthday present, or soaked into a blanket. Some ways criminals are trying to get the drug out of Canada and into Australia. 400 kilos of it was seized in Vancouver in the past 5 months.
Our country should not be seen by criminals as a place that exports dangerous drugs. We are refusing to be the driver of methamphetamine distribution, and we are dedicated to finding all narcotics that are attempting to breach our borders.
But drugs are breaching the border more than ever, according to Canada's border agency, cleverly concealed in cargo like this fake apple juice shipment, or Australian police say carried by the kilo in suitcases by Canadians.
Canada is among the countries that it's featuring in terms of source destinations.
Seizures between Australia and Canada aren't new, but agencies say their frequency is increasing, and so too are the volumes.
And why might that be? And I think the answer to be found is what in the prices that Australians are prepared to pay. The extraordinary profits for those who are prepared to roll the dice and get involved.
Drugs shipped to Australia sell for some of the highest street prices in the world. Traffickers know it, and North American meth is Australia's biggest source.
Oh, and it looks like she's found her third hide here. And in this one, we have a small amount of heroin.
Canada's border agency says it's already prevented millions of doses from being sent overseas, but says collaboration with international partners like the Australian Border Force is the best line of defence against criminal gangs.
And it was just really critical to bring those officers together so that we can understand emerging threats.
Stopping the circulation of drugs and crime in Canada and beyond. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Nearly a dozen people have been forced out of their homes after a massive fire Monday night in East Vancouver. It happened on East Pender near Raymer Avenue. As Belle Puri shows us, little is left of their homes.
Flames lit up the evening sky, shooting 30 meters into the air. Firefighters were called just before 8 o'clock. Initially, there were flames on the outside of one house.
And you can see how close these homes are together. It spread very quickly from one house to the other house.
In the end, 3 homes were destroyed.
It's a tragedy in our city, and to lose housing and to have people displaced is heartbreaking.
Little is left beyond the shells of the houses.
It was a beautiful home, a heritage home.
The damage is clearly significant.
The house is probably fully destroyed, but our main concern really is the tenants and their welfare.
8 tenants lived in 3 suites.
You just see the explosion and then they bring everybody out.
Many people took to social media to share videos and photographs of flames shooting into the sky. It was a challenge for firefighters. At one point, a deck collapsed on a gas meter, and that alone burned for an hour until the gas could be turned off. It took 55 firefighters hours to get the fire under control.
We did have a massive plume of flames that had basically gone up all the trees, and we had a significant fire event already in progress.
Right now, there's no word on what caused the fire. Investigators are still looking for clues.
There was a lot of people in this area, which is good to get feedback and actually interview the people who may have saw it as it first started.
Other than 2 minor cases of smoke inhalation, there were no physical injuries to anyone. The emotions over what's been lost, though, will last much longer. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
With both Diwali and Halloween on the horizon, attention is turning to fireworks. In Surrey, City Council unanimously voted to toughen up fines. The CBC's Rafferty Baker has more on what it might cost you if you violate the rules.
Here we go! Fireworks have long been part of October in Metro Vancouver, with people either loving the excitement or complaining about the nuisance.
I love the fireworks so much. I'm coming from India. It's always in our every festivals we used to light fireworks. So yeah, I love the fireworks very much.
I don't think it really matters unless it's like 2, 3 in the morning. It's kind of ridiculous.
As long as it's not too late, then it's all right.
Now they're banned in most municipalities. That's the case in Surrey. Similar to places like Vancouver, if you want to put on a fireworks display, you need a federal license and a municipal permit. And not a lot of those go out each year in Surrey.
Probably 3 to 5 for fireworks shows.
Outside those shows, everything you hear out there is illegal.
Fireworks have been a nuisance for quite a length of time, and specifically the consumer fireworks.
Surrey's fire chief says issues usually revolve around the noise, but they can start fires and keep crews busy too. He says an average of 12 to 20 fires each year are blamed on fireworks, mostly this time of year.
And so that can be anything from a brush fire to a car fire to a shed fire to a house fire, or even a few years back we had a complete apartment building fire caused by fireworks.
City Council is again trying to clamp down on fireworks, with the mayor saying the complaints pour in each year.
They're certainly not legal to be putting off in the city of Surrey, and so we're saying to people, don't do it. It's a problem. Every single year we have problems.
So the feeling was that the fines need to level up. They've basically been doubled. A municipal ticket can now be as much as $1,000. With court action, the penalty can go up to $50,000. The previous fines didn't stop the explosions, and many people already know it's illegal.
Well, but that doesn't seem to make much difference. You can still hear it late in the evening.
It's time they enforce the law.
Locke says officials aren't fooling around on the issue anymore, and she hopes the changes make for a calmer season. Rafferty Baker, CBC News, Surrey.
Canadian politicians are condemning protesters caught on camera lighting a Canadian flag on fire in downtown Vancouver last night and calling for Israel to burn. As Catherine Cullen explains, it comes as tensions over the Middle East boil over on Parliament Hill.
A protest denounced in Parliament.
It is absolutely unacceptable to burn the Canadian flag and to chant death to Canada.
To these pro-genocide, anti-Semitic, anti-Canadian mobs who threaten our Jewish communities nationwide.
Responding to video like this.
Israel, burn, burn!
Posted by the Western Standard, taken at a Vancouver protest on the anniversary of the deadly October 7th attacks in Israel by Hamas.
And most deadly attack.
The Conservatives insist growing anti-Semitism is the fault of the Liberal government. Speaking at a memorial hosted by Ottawa's Jewish Federation, Pierre Poilievre was very political.
These horrifying outbursts of hatred are not from the bottom up, they are from the top down.
Telling the audience that it was time for a change in government.
Pander to Hamas supporters.
And earlier that same day, in the House of Commons, he accused the Foreign Affairs Minister of pandering to Hamas supporters, a point he pressed again today.
She's pandering politically, which is what Justin Trudeau has been doing for the last 9 years.
Poilievre's refusal to apologize for what he said in the House meant he wasn't allowed to ask any questions Tuesday, while Mélanie Joly had plenty to say.
Mais je les condamne. Je les condamne tous les jours.
Becoming visibly frustrated in French as she offered condemnation of anti-Semitism and Hamas, she says Poilievre is a hypocrite.
Well, he's saying that he's fighting anti-Semitism. He never condemned those who were waving a Nazi flag during the Freedom Convoy on this Parliament Hill. Why didn't he?
There are more warnings as Hurricane Milton churns through the Gulf of Mexico toward Tampa Bay. Weather officials call it extremely dangerous, and the U.S. president says it could be the worst storm to hit Florida in a century.
The current path of the storm is expected to Tampa Bay area and cut directly across the state, east to west, all the way across the state, with the potential for this storm to both enter Florida as a hurricane and leave Florida as a hurricane on the Atlantic coast.
It's projected to make landfall as a Category 3 storm near the Tampa area on Wednesday. packing winds of more than 190 kilometers per hour. The eye of the storm could come ashore anywhere from Cedar Key in the north to Naples in the south. Let's bring in our science and climate expert Darius Madavi now for a first look at our weather and an update on Hurricane Milton that we're just hearing about.
I just wanted to show you how pronounced the eye of this storm is. It became a Category 5 hurricane again just a couple hours ago, strengthening back from a Category 4, which it briefly weakened to earlier. And just look at how clear that eye is. That is genuinely very scary as the storm continues to turn towards Tampa Bay, where it's expected to reach tomorrow evening as a major hurricane still. Even if it does weaken somewhat, we're talking about a lot of damage being done to an area that was just hit by Hurricane Helene. There's debris scattered all across those streets that could become essentially projectiles as they get picked up by those hurricane force winds. Because we do have so many tropical storm warnings and hurricane warnings in place, because this is such a dangerous situation. Just take a look at those storm surge warnings. Some areas, especially around Tampa, looking at potentially 4 to 5 meters of storm surge. And that's if the storm comes south of Tampa. If it comes towards Tampa, closer to Tampa, it's even more dangerous because you're going to see those winds push the storm surge directly towards the city. Now, over here in BC, nothing quite so severe. We have some showers coming across the province. Nothing really to worry about. No watches or warnings in place across the province. Some snow happening up in the north. Those showers moving in, drying out for the most part as we enter the later part of this week. The south coast should start to see some clearing up as we get into tomorrow. Temperatures sticking more or less around seasonal over the next few days. If anything, a little bit above seasonal, really. Conditions across the province tomorrow still seem quite pleasant. A decent amount of sunshine, a few thunderstorms, especially in the central interior and up in the north and central coast. But here in Vancouver, expect to see maybe a few more showers tomorrow, but generally clearing up as we head into the weekend, Dan.
All right, Darius Madavi, thanks very much.
Thank you.
And we're just about 15 minutes away from the televised leaders' debate ahead of next weekend's provincial election. Coming up, we're going to touch base with our political panel on what each leader needs to do to stand out and what winning this debate might mean. Stick around. We are minutes away from the BC election televised leaders debate. It starts live at 6:30 right here on CBC. Whether you're watching right now on TV or online, stay tuned. You are on the right channel. Let's look ahead to this debate with our political panel. And we're going to start with Rachel Siegel, the campaign representative for the Conservative Party of BC. Rachel, thanks for being here. What are you looking for tonight?
My pleasure. I am really excited about tonight. I can't wait to see all three of the leaders. But particularly, I'm looking for John to really show British Columbians the type of premier he will be, somebody who's thoughtful, someone who looks at policy and says, here's a solution for British Columbians. I'm also looking to John for him to show his experience. I mean, you have to remember, he's been at the cabinet table for many years. And he has experience in different portfolios. I'd like to see that shine through, and I feel that it will. I'm also looking for David Eby to make the case to British Columbians as to why they're better off now than they were 7 years ago under this NDP government. And I think it'll be interesting for him to have to go toe-to-toe on some of his policies, his record, his flip-flops on a few things. And then again, Sonia Furstenau and what the Greens have to offer British Columbians going into this election.
All right, let's move to Mo Sahota, former NDP cabinet minister, operating his own lobbying firm. Mo, what about you? What are you looking for?
Well, I think what viewers are looking for is they want to get a better feel for the person that's involved. So they're going to look at variables like relatability, how well-intentioned they are, how thoughtful they are. And that's going to come from both what they say and also from the body language. You know, in a campaign, there are sort of three variables that people always look at. They look at party, they look at policy, and they look at leader. When the writ is dropped, of course, people sort of tilt one way or the other in terms of party. And then we get into what we've had that last week, the phase where there's platform. And then now you get to this. And the decision is crystallized here in the minds of most people, because they are going to be looking at the leaders and saying, well, which of these would be the best person to guide BC through the challenges that lay ahead?
And forgive me, Pete Fry, a member of the Green Party and Vancouver City Councillor, what are you looking for?
Well, I think this is an opportunity for I think John Rustad to explain to the British Columbians who he is, and they can get a little bit more of a sense of who he is. I think for Premier Eby, I think the danger would be trying to defend his record too much and not really articulating what his vision for the future is and what the NDP can bring for the future. But I think the real opportunity is for Sonia Furstenau to explain why Greens, why independents, why there is that need for that balance of power, and where she can really articulate, I think, a clear vision that isn't beholden to trying to promise people everything. I think they've got a pretty clear vision that they've laid out, and they want people to hear it.
And we will wait and see. All three of you, thanks very much. We will chat very soon after the debate. Again, we'll have more on our post-debate show at 8 o'clock Pacific. Watch it live on YouTube, CBC Gem, our CBC News app, and on our streaming channel. Life not so good for one West Kelowna man after a giant pumpkin was pilfered off his property. Yes, you will want to stick around for this. Someone has stolen a giant pumpkin with celebrity status from a West Kelowna property over the weekend. David Lindsay has been growing the gourd all summer as a gift to his grandsons this Halloween.
This is my camouflage now. This is my other pumpkin right here. Based on a rough volume, I'm thinking about 243 pounds. I don't know. It might be more than that. The one that was taken, it would be similar size. This is the scene of the crime, as it were. I knew it was really vulnerable. Right, it was right here where my foot is now. And it was getting celebrity status because people were taking pictures with it and kids were on it and everything else. I was a little disappointed. But the interesting part of it is I was actually on my way to a friend's 70th birthday party. When I got to the party, I said, I'm a little sad. Somebody stole my pumpkin. And everybody's like, what? This is horrible. And now you think about it. If I had said to him, somebody just stole my car. Well, okay, yeah. You know, but a pumpkin, they were all upset about. Maybe it's because of the connection we have to it when we were children, and you're sort of take it a little bit personal. We all remember carving pumpkins, you know, scooping them out. The grandkids, I understand from my son, they were a little disappointed, but I guess there's even a lesson there, and that is life's not always fair. So they'll be fine. I'll have them in the backyard next year. So, yeah, it's all fun. Don't worry. If this is what you've got to snivel about, you don't have any problems really.
At least bring him a pie. Stand by. The BC Leaders Debate is coming up with John Rustad, David Eby, and Sonia Furst are now set to take the stage for a 90-minute debate moderated by Shachi Curl with the Angus Reid Institute. As soon as it's over, stay with us online. Our legislative reporter, Katie DeRosa, will break down what went down, and we will hear from the three leaders on the night that was, and touch base with our political panel as well. We will see you after the debate.